Hello, on the news in New Zealand the other day, there was a piece about whether you should buy alternative domain names and the pros and cons of it. And there was quite a few things that were missed out of that piece. Now, the person that was promoting an alternative domain name was an ex-rugby All Black player. And because, funnily enough, he was a 50% shareholder in the .kiwi domain name registrar, if I understood that correctly. And I was thinking, oh wow, isn't that fascinating that he's given advice? But it was really about making sure that Kiwis are standing proud online. But this applies to all different types of domain names, whether it's .co.nz, .co, .kiwi, .travel, whatever else, right? And there's some big risks about purchasing other domain names depending on the reason that you're doing it. Now, the biggest reason I think for doing it is brand protection. But as you probably know, once you start buying a lot of different domain names and variations, it adds up to quite a lot per year. Now, really, it's pennies considering the size of the majority of businesses. I mean, it's not pennies, but in comparison to turnover, it's a tiny amount of money. But the biggest risk that gets overlooked when people buy different domain names is how do you use them? And there's some real risks of that from a search engine optimization perspective because any variation of a domain name, search engines treat as different. So you could have a domain name of dub dub dub. Oops, dub dub dub. I'm going to clear this. You could have a domain name of www.mydomain .com, and you could have a domain, mydomain.com. Now, in theory, people think of that as the same domain name because usually one gets redirected to the other one. Now, when that happens, search engines actually see these separate domain names, so you have to make sure that you're using the same one consistently, because if you start to use the www reference and then you drop it off of here in a lot of backlinks, it means you're diluting your backlinks to your website. Now, if you have say a .co.nz domain name and then you start using a .nz or a .kiwi. Now, this .co.nz might have been building backlinks to that website for years and years and years. So you could have been building links like this. There could be hundreds of thousands of links to this website. And backlinks to a website gives you a lot of domain authority. Now, up comes along this .nz and you start to use that. And then you might start to use .kiwi. And now we've worked with big brands before that wanted to use .nz on print brochures and stuff like that because it took up less space than .co.nz. Now the downside about that is you've got years of history here building backlinks to this .co.nz, and along comes this .nz domain. So this is like domain.nz and domain, domain.co.nz, right? So you've got all these links around here, and then you start to use this one on print, and you start to build up the odd link to there and the odd link to there. Now, so now you're diluting your backlinks to your website and you're diluting your domain authority. If you start to move from .co.nz to a .kiwi and you use that in all your primary print, then you need to redirect all of these backlinks to that as well, so that you keep your domain authority. Because the more backlinks you've got, generally that implies that the domain is more trustworthy and it helps for your domain ranking and your domain authority. Of course, content, technical, site structure, website speed, loads of other types of stuff, and the architecture of your website, the organization of it, all that counts, but backlinks are still really important. So there's a big risk with buying alternative domain names, and it's It's about breaking your domain authority or lessening and diminishing your domain authority. If you ever transfer domain names from one domain to another, whether it's exactly the same domain with a different extension, so from .co.nz to .kiwi, that's being treated as a completely brand new domain name. And you have to manage all your redirects. Now, all your on-site redirects, you can deal with that. It's all the inbound redirects from elsewhere to your website that's really tough to manage, because you might get redirects that you can change, like from maybe like trade associations or tourism associations or businesses that you work with regularly. You can go get them to update it. But the reality is there's going to be thousands of links or hundreds of links to your website you've got no control over, from bloggers or other sites or directories and stuff, that you just will never get around to contacting them all. So big risk. .co.nz to .kiwi or .co or .ai. If you're thinking about moving this to something like this, manage the risks. Don't necessarily take advice from a Kiwi All Black, um, unless it's about domain protection. Because if you've got an established business, you want to stick with your established domain name and make sure that it's consistent how you represent it online. You don't want to mix and mingle dub with non-dub and all this kind of stuff. So get it right in the right place if you're going to do anything on your website, because you could do some really cool looking project and it completely shatters your domain authority over time, either instantly or over time. So that's my quick lesson for today. I hope it's been of use, and yeah, make sure you go to the right place for your digital marketing advice.